Drawing from Hegel, Karl Marx once remarked that all facts and personages of great importance in world history occur, as it were, twice. He forgot to add, the first time is tragedy, the second is farce. He then compared the rise of Napoleon I to the rise of Napoleon III. We might attempt a similar comparison between leaders of the American Civil War era and those on the left who continually talk of civil war. Men do indeed make their own history, and now we are told to add radical feminists and transgenders to the list of those who make their own history. And, unlike men, radical feminists and transgenders make history as they please. Their belief in a future socialist utopia weighs on the sleeping world like a nightmare. And just when these geniuses of hope and change seem most engaged in revolutionizing things and themselves, in creating something that has never existed, they blast their opponents as fascists. They demonize those who resist as Luther once demonized the Pope. They advance as if they were the Union Army of 1861 to 1865, meting out apocalyptic destruction to America's deplorables by trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. Compared with those who fought for freedom in centuries past, however, our socialist liberators are actors, perhaps even comedians. They would ape Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, and the abolitionists of the 1860s, with an emphasis on ape. Their egalitarian borrowings from Lincoln are but low parody as they liken gender confusion to African chattel slavery. Why must they always be liberating people who are not in chains? Is it neurosis? Are they bored? In place of the wisdom of our founding fathers, these actors advocate critical race theory, global warming, and a regime of weird pronoun preferences. They forward these items because there isn't really anyone left to liberate. The socialists of America, flying the colors of the Democratic Party, have created inside America mechanisms for overthrowing capitalism. These mechanisms include, but are not limited to, 1. Opening the southern border to millions of illegal aliens, 2. Reducing domestic energy production, 3. Inflating the currency, and 4. Guaranteeing national bankruptcy by overextending government largesse to the able-bodied. It seems the American border is to be swept away, along with the American middle class. A new social formation, predicated on racial animus toward white people, is being weaponized. Once this new social formation is established, socialism will be armed with a fighting constituency built from transgenders, gays, women, minorities, and immigrants. This is the program of the Communist Party USA, which describes itself as the road to socialism. It is communism's formula for waging a victorious civil war in America. The communists and socialists see themselves cast in the mold of William Lloyd Garrison, Charles Henry Langston, Harriet Beecher Stowe, Frederick Douglass, and Abraham Lincoln himself. Socialism, in its drunken unreality, has begotten its own deceptive interpreters and mouthpieces in the Clintons, Obamas, and Bidens, not to mention Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, and Kamala Harris. Its military leaders have promoted critical race theory inside the armed forces under the hog-headed Lloyd Austin. Wholly absorbed in the pursuit of power through disinformation and election fraud, these leaders forgot that the ghosts of the American Civil War were watching over their cradle. As venal and corrupt as they are, they forgot that the Union was preserved and slavery ended in the Civil War by heroism, sacrifice, bloodshed, and the clash of armies. Forgetting the profound moral seriousness of those who fought the American Civil War, these clownish frauds have concealed from themselves their cowardice and infantilism. It is the infantilism of big government with its ever-filled purse of free goodies. That this purse is almost empty, that they will be hanged for the universal bankruptcy they have set in motion, does not register with them. They are oblivious to the danger they have been courting, from abroad and at home. With all this, could they really depict themselves as great emancipators? Even as Cromwell and his army borrowed from the Old Testament to make a revolution against King Charles, America's socialists will borrow from the American Civil War to puff themselves out. Although Lincoln was a Republican, we have long had leftist filmmakers like Ken Burns and the late Ed Asner framing the Gettysburg Address for the rising socialist generation. But will this work? As Dale Kretz of Jacobin magazine explained, the U.S. Civil War was a revolutionary upheaval that crushed slavery and stoked hopes of a broader emancipation against the rule of property. We should draw on this memory today for struggles against racism and capitalism. April 6, 2022, more than 100 years ago, the leader of the American Socialist Party, Eugene V. Debs, was dubbed the Second Great Emancipator. And so, the American socialist has long hid his commonplace repulsive features under the death mask of Abraham Lincoln. A generation raised to see history as a confirmation of Marxist theory might well mistake the rail splitter from Illinois for a closeted homosexual socialist. They project onto Lincoln their own values and opinions, and their hankering for the fleshpots of Kamala. In doing this, they have attempted to make history a parody. Yet, they are the parody. The American Civil War was a tragedy, but as our socialist clowns would make a civil war, it would be farce. Whoopi Goldberg for Harriet Beecher Stowe, George Floyd and the summer riots of 2020 for John Brown and Bloody Kansas, January 6 for the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter, Kamala Harris for Abraham Lincoln, and Donald Trump for Jefferson Davis. Whatever tragedies grow out of this comedy, much depends on Moscow and Beijing. Are the great communist powers in a position to exploit their clownish American friends? The Russian Revolution, like all the socialist revolutions, stormed swiftly from success to dizzying success, as Stalin bragged. But in the end, there was only grinding poverty, a police state, and the Gulag. With this dismal history kept out of view, perfectly oblivious to their own suicidal course, America's socialists have always managed to sabotage themselves. At present, all they can do is recycle the same empty platitudes, the same nihilistic cynicism, the same anti-market vitriol. Nothing ever changes with these people. Of course, our socialists have yet to taste the unlimited power the Bolsheviks enjoyed in Russia. They dream and dream again, inching toward a regime that will despoil the middle class and open the way to a regime of absolute plunder. What they have failed to remember is that they are also children of the middle class. They are also bourgeois. They are not Russian or Chinese. Rather, they share in the pathological softness of consumer society. Ultimately, they will be forced to recognize the brutality of the Chinese and Russian regimes. But the real question is, how long will it take them to recognize the danger they represent to themselves? When Biden quit the presidential race and opened the way for Kamala Harris on second Thermidor, July 21st, he handed the presidency to someone who is more openly socialist in her opinions than anyone who has run for president. Now we will see if half the country really wants socialism. Now we will see how effective our socialist educators have been in their management of grades K-12. All the same, Kamala Harris can never step into George Washington's shoes because those shoes would swallow her. How would this wicked Lilliputian climb out of Washington's shoe once she fell in?